Hi, I'm Ollie. Welcome to Breaks. This is a level 4 IDDSI Christmas meal that we're going to show you today. So being that it's Christmas, we're going to be looking at, obviously it's a roast dinner, but we're going to be looking at the nuances that you can add in, little bits that you can add to give the flavors of Christmas. So you start thinking of spices like nutmeg, cinnamon, nice honey roasted, lots of herbs and things like that going through the potatoes and so forth and so on. So what we've looked at here is a few sort of things that we can elevate your Christmas dinner to the next level. So we won't be using anything like bacon to puree because it's very sticky and it kind of goes gelatinous and it doesn't blend very well. But as an alternative, we can use some gammon that will blend really well. And what we've done here is we've blended the gammon and we've added some cranberry sauce in there. We blended it well and passed it. And this is the end result, giving you a lovely sweet, savoury flavour that can be piped onto the plate or act as your stuffing that will go through the middle of your turkey. We've also added some extras here. So we've got some turkey skin that we've taken off the turkey and we've crisped individually. This adds a beautiful extra sort of flavour to your puree that will give that lovely back note of roasted turkey. Equally, you can use chicken skins and so forth, and it gives a beautiful flavour. And it's just that added element that will make your puree sing. And then we move on to the vegetables. So we've got the classic parsnips. We're going to be roasting our vegetables. The reason being is that we're trying to get the condensed sugars and the flavors of roasting to increase the flavor profile of the puree. If you just steam vegetables, obviously you don't get that extra caramelization, that extra flavor. So that's why we will go through that process. Some of the other vegetables we've got some good old Brussels sprouts. But on their own, yet again, it's a cabbagey flavor, maybe not desirable. So we're going to be adding some bits of the gammon into that, so you kind of get that nice savory flavor again with the Brussels sprouts. We've also got some butternut squash. We've got some nice carrots, and we also got some celeriac. Celeriac's really good for making beautiful silky purees. What we're going to be using it for today is increasing the flavour of the potatoes. So we're going to be folding some of that puree in. That'll help us get a really nice consistency, and it will also have a lovely back note of the celeriac running through it. So we're here to talk about IDDSI level 4 today. There's some key components and some testing methods that we need to use when we're looking at the purees when we're talking about IDDSI level 4. So there's two things that we're going to be using. The fork and the spoon, very simple, things that you're going to have in your kitchens, things you're going to have on the care floors and so forth, and they're as simple as the test I'm about to show you. So we go through the cooking process. We're going to be cooking through steaming or through the oven or roasting, whatever it might be, but we'll always puree the foods down so they're nice and smooth, and then we'll always pass them through something very fine in order to make sure we catch any lumps or pieces, bits, skins, anything like that, and make sure that the puree is completely smooth. The rest of it comes down to testing. So we use a fork, which has got some 4mm gaps between the prongs. We're going to pick up the puree and we're going to place it onto the fork. Now you shouldn't see anything, you can have some slight tails coming through from the moisture in the puree, but it should not be dripping through. The body of the puree should hold, and it should always be served and tested at the temperature of which you're going to be serving this food at. If it's cold, thicken and test when it's cold. If it's going to be hot, it should be at the serving temperature to make sure that it passes all the tests ready before consumption. The second test is to make sure it's not too sticky. Anything that's too sticky in the mouth is going to be very difficult to move around and process to the back for swallowing. So we need to make sure that it is smooth and that it's also not too sticky to help with that process. Very simply, you can pick up some of your puree and we'll take off, and the flick will show that there's not too much left on the spoon. There's always going to be some puree left on the spoon. If it falls off completely and it's completely clean, it's not exactly a true test. So therefore, that's what it should look like. So when we're selecting our vegetables, we need to think about the process of which we're going to cook them. We also need to think about them in their entirety of what will cook well, what will blend well. With parsnips, we need to look at taking the skins off. We also need to be mindful that the cores aren't too woody. This one's in particular are quite firm and quite woody, and they won't cook and blend well. So we've omitted those and we've come back to having just the flesh, which will be nice and soft and will blend down well. Butternut squash is a beautiful vegetable, but there's also some challenges around how and what we do with this. The skin, although it can be edible, is going to be tough. There's going to be seeds inside, which are also going to be tough. So we want to cut, trim and omit those so we end up with just the lovely flesh. You can roast the flesh, add extra caramelization and more flavor, or you could just puree it through and you could fold it also into some carrots and incorporate extra vitamins and color. So this is wonderful celeriac. It's got a lovely earthy, creamy flavor to it. Works really well with potatoes. Takes flavors like nutmeg and things like that and adding cream beautifully and makes lovely sauces, sort of purees, and also stands on its own. You could just roast it and have it as cubes of roasted flavors as well on your traditional roast. Caramelization will help extra flavor, but if you want to keep that pure, nice white color, you can just simply simmer it with some milk, some cream, blend it down, and you end up with a wonderful puree. Last but not least, we have the humble potato. Maris Piper's red potatoes tend to give you a really good end result. We're going to be chopping those up, peeling them, chopping them up so that we have nice individual clear discs, but making sure that they're all even so that when you cook them, they will pass through and mash really well into a puree. If you end up with chunks like this compared to a chunk like this, it's going to be more difficult for that to be processed and cook at the same time. So if they're even, they will then cook and puree really well. So the carrots have been in the oven now for probably about 40 minutes. I've added a little bit of stock just to help them from drying out, and we've added some honey at the end, and we've got that lovely golden caramelized skins that we're going to help puree and add more vitamins, nutrients and flavor to the puree. So we're going to put these in whole and we're going to let them blend with the juices that's already in there, and then we're going to assess the puree afterwards. So as we look at the puree now, we might think that we're ready. But the trouble with purees, when you break down the cellular level and the water escapes from the vegetable, we need to make sure that we can add a little bit of food thickener to stop that water from leaching out on the plate. If I was to put this on a plate now, you might be able to see, actually, if you zoom in closely, you can see water starting to escape from the puree. So that's the purpose of the food thickener. It's just to hold the water in. It's not to make, take over the actual substance of the puree. It's there literally just to hold that water content. Always think food first. Food will taste better if there's more food in it. So as you can see with the modified food thickener, there's less shimmering, less water seeping out of the puree, and the consistency is getting pretty much near where we would like it to be. So we finished the pureeing process now. You can really smell the aromas of those caramelized carrots coming through, lovely bits of thyme, and we've used the food thickener and we're pretty happy with the consistency that we've now got to. But the thing we need to test now is to make sure it fits the testing criteria, which is always using the fork and the spoon. These are the judges, nobody else. So if you ever have a question to ask whether you've got the right consistency, these will let you know. So we're going to take the puree, we're going to place it on the fork, and then we have, it's not falling through the prongs, it's holding its shape, and it's a lovely, lovely puree, nice and smooth. We've also passed it through our sieve. We made sure there's no bits in it, and that's kept it nice and safe. Make sure there's nothing that's going to catch in the process. And we're just going to test the stickiness now. Take the puree, flick it off, and you're left with minimal residue on the spoon. We're now ready for the plating process, so I'm going to put that into a piping bag, and then we can plate up from there. We could also, if we wanted to, do a chefy little swish on a plate. There's no rules. Your plating comes up to your style and how you'd like to plate it. It's completely up to you. We're now going to put the puree into a piping bag ready for piping for service. If you wanted to chill this down, you could chill this down, put it in the piping bag, label and date it, IDDSI level 4 carrot. It can then sit in your fridge and it's then available to use at a future point. So we're just going to take our mashed potato and we're going to pass it through the sieve, make sure there's no lumps in there. Any lumps could potentially be a choking hazard. So we're just going to put it in little by little. It's a labour-intensive process, but it's worth doing just to make sure that our residents and people in our care are safe. Just be mindful not to use the spoon that you've used to clean the back of it, because you could be adding lumps into the puree. So the turkey's come out of the oven, and we're going to puree that down now with some stock. You could add your gravies or sauces into your proteins to blend down. It's a really good way of adding that flavour, getting the puree where it needs to be, and then it makes it nice and easy to puree and pipe onto the plate. You can add sauces to your purees, but it must be the same texture, level 4 IDDSI, as everything else on the plate. It can't be thin because that creates two textures and it's difficult to control in the mouth. We're going to begin by piping the mashed potato. We're then going to put our turkey on the plate. We've blended the skins into this, and it adds a beautiful flavour. We're then going to add our Christmassy stuffing with cranberry. That's going to go straight down the middle. And we're just going to cover back over with the turkey. A couple more dots just to make people realise that there's the stuffing in there. We'll then move on to our beautiful parsnips. Some Brussels sprouts, which have got some gammon through it as well for extra flavour. You could be using piping nozzles here. I'm just using different piping techniques. And last but not least, our butternut squash and honey roasted carrots that have got beautiful flavour and colour. And there you have it. Just my version of a roast Christmas dinner. IDDSI level 4.